Okay, once again, it looks like YouTube is going live a lot faster than it's actually showing me on the screen, but welcome back. I have a second recording to do today, and this is really about the AI apocalypse, as I said in the title. But I want to look at this from multiple perspectives. Now, I have talked about AI for quite a while now, as my background is machine learning. I started out with predictive programming, CACI, for the military more than 30 years ago, and then moved into machine learning relative to robots that drive, meaning autonomous vehicles, and then helped launch the AI Assist for Intuit, which is a fintech, as you know, TurboTax and QuickBooks. But AI was the excuse that we saw for laying off Americans in the United States over the last probably about 2 to 2.5 years, saying that AI is replacing workers, when in fact, AI was not replacing workers. H-1B visa workers in the tech environment were replacing American workers under the guise of AI that wasn't quite there yet. However, today's conversation is very different. AI is there, and it has been, and it's released. Salesforce, all those SaaS companies, software SaaS, the software as a service companies, don't need to exist anymore. Nobody needs to pay them, as we saw Twitter prior to X paying them something like $10 million a year. That's absurd. In fact, in my mind, that was money laundering, going from one venture capital owned company to another. We don't need that anymore. When you go down to a local office, maybe a county or city, all those workers that are collecting taxpayer funded money aren't necessary anymore. And quite honestly, I'm done with it. So, although there's going to be some positives moving forward as AI replaces the useless human, today's conversation isn't about that. Today's conversation is about humans becoming useless, which means you can replace robots in companies, whether it's physical robots that walk around or the brains of a computer. But you know what you can't replace? You can't replace their customers or consumers. And if the customers lost their jobs and don't have money, the cycle ends. So we're going to talk a little bit about universal basic income as well. I think it's known as UBI, as a solution in a world where we want capitalism. We're not pushing for communism. So let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit. I've got a few notes outlined here and see how we can go through this as efficiently as possible. Got my little buddy down here. In fact, let me pull him up so that he'll leave us alone a little bit. But you know what happens is, as soon as one of them comes up, the other one decides that he wants to. There we go. There you go. Okay. All right. I want you to go to bed. Go lay down, okay? Okay, go lay down. Good boy. It's a good boy. Okay, so he's satisfied. Now I'm going to get the other one. Okay, so what I wanted to do is kind of just start from the top here. We're not going into the how-to, but we're going to go into the effects right now, the reality of how this is affecting you and I. Now, I'm going to start by something that you've probably experienced as well. The other day, my son and I went into a Denny's, and we haven't been in one in many, many years. In fact, the last time we went, the food was absolutely just unedible. We couldn't even recognize it as a Denny's, so we didn't go back. We were traveling, so we decided to go in, and this time the server was a robot, a little robot with a tray. You place your order, and then they'd bring it back out to you. What service jobs aren't going to be needed? But this is where we're at today. Okay, so this is really crucial and complex, that we're looking at the interaction of automation, artificial intelligence, AI, capitalism, and the future of work, the way that we earn money and we live. As technology rapidly advances, we see certain promises from tech leaders that AI and robots will improve society and reduce the need for human labor. But as you note, these changes come with unintended consequences. Except, are they really? We read the 2030 agenda, particularly the displacement of workers and the widening economic gap. Now, Elon Musk has stated that humans just won't have to work anymore. We're going to be in a heyday, the golden era. But you know what? He's a trillionaire. If so much money will flow to all of us because robots are doing all the work, how much money have you gotten from Elon recently? Now, once again, from a capitalist perspective, I'm not expecting a trillionaire to give me any money. But how else am I supposed to survive if the robots are doing the work and I don't own any robots? Particularly the displacement of workers and widening the economic gap, of course, is what we're looking at here. The idea of universal basic income, UBI, is often proposed as a solution, but it's clear that the true pathway to such a future is really wrapped around contradictions. Trying to sell you the rainbow or the pot at the end of the rainbow that absolutely doesn't exist. Here's a proposal or a conversation that I wanted to go over through. And I went ahead and broke it down by chapters or segments in order to get through this. The first chapter is the promise versus the reality of AI and automation. So in this segment, we're going to look at how automation is transforming industries and specifically the job market, the human in the loop. Many companies, including Amazon, Tesla, and Walmart, huge companies that impact all of us daily, have promoted the idea that AI and robotics will lead to a more efficient world where humans just don't need to work. However, the vision doesn't account for the replacement of workers who, while replaced by robots, don't share in any of the benefits of the automation. So I found a case study, Amazon warehouse automation. Amazon has long touted its investment in automation to streamline operations. Their warehouses run extremely efficient with robots moving the packages. The company has invested billions in robotics, leading to faster processing times and reduced labor costs. However, an investigation by The Guardian revealed that Amazon workers are often pushed to the brink of grueling environments that are further strained by the reliance on human workers in the system. As AI robots handle more of the logistics and delivery, the actual wage growth for warehouse workers has stagnated, creating a widening divide between those benefiting from automation, in this case, maybe Jeff Bezos. Even though he's no longer CEO of Amazon, he's still benefiting from the stock option, and I believe he's still a board member. And the workers who keep the machine running are paid as little as possible. We've also seen that many who try to unionize or gain structure often don't find themselves working there much longer. Now, I'm in no way pro-union, but it does show these companies aren't playing ball. They'll take their ball and go home before they're going to pay you or I any more money. In fact, in the tech industry here, I've run into a lot of individuals who worked for Amazon early on, maybe about 6 to 8 years ago. In this area, the warehouses were really going to the next level with robotics. Unfortunately, many suffered career-ending interactions with the robots where they ran into them or crushed them against the wall. The NDAs are so tight with very little payout that the individuals are still responsible for working. It wasn't something that compensated them for a lifetime, and yet the injury is still apparent even in other roles. But the NDA kept them silent. Why the silence? Chapter 2, the human cost of technological displacement. As companies push forward with the technological solutions, the impact on the working class is often downplayed. You and I don't have the megaphone. Workers displaced by automation face significant challenges, including retraining for new jobs and dealing with job insecurity. You know, how much more stress can you and I take? Every step of the way, we are encountering a whole new level of stress, whether it's layoffs or overwork or whatever it is. The economic implications of large scale job loss are profound, especially in industries where robots can replace humans faster than workers can transition to new fields. In fact, did you know that on, I think it's Sono, Sono, I could be wrong on that.com, you can go in and with one prompt, request a song with lyrics, the musical background, everything. And within 20 to 30 seconds, depending on how long it's going to take you to structure the prompt, and you can create a full song, full recording. Did you know that within about 15 minutes, you can do a search on Google using, I think it's, what is the one now? What is it? And I'm blanking on the name right now, but there's other AI video platforms that you can do a search on what's trending right now on Google, put in a prompt so that it pulls in those trends and sets up a, I don't know, 2-3 hour broadcast, all covered by your avatar. So you don't even have to be there for that. You program it once and it continues to move. Where are we needed anymore? You can imagine, we've seen a lot of movies where humans are not the police. Fire departments would do well with using robots and drones rather than sending people inside. We would think that plumbers and electricians are key, but then you haven't gone to a Tesla or a SpaceX factory. And we've now seen robots that are meant to be in your home that, in the same moment that they can lift a 60-pound box, can also fold a t-shirt. We're not needed. As companies push forward with technological solutions, the impact on the working class is really being downplayed. Workers displaced by automation face significant challenges, including retraining for new jobs and dealing with the job insecurity. What does that really mean to us? So I looked up a case study here, the decline of manufacturing jobs in the United States. Now, we've gone back and forth on this for decades as manufacturing opened up in other countries. Specifically, if we go back to the 1990s, they would put manufacturing plants just over the border in Mexico. So it would be substantially transformed in Mexico and then brought over the border. And that seemed to be a wiser way in order to handle traffic, meaning that displaced a lot of American jobs. Well, what we're looking at now even displaces those in Mexico, and it makes those manufacturing plants obsolete. So the case study in the decline of manufacturing jobs in the US related to the implementation of machine learning robotics to replace humans. The loss of manufacturing jobs in the US due to automation and offshoring is a case study point. A 2019 report by the Economic Policy Institute found that automation and trade policies have contributed to the loss of over 4 million manufacturing jobs in the US alone. That's over 4 million individuals who are probably married with families that had a home at one point. 4 million. And this article came out in 2019. This is pre the AI that we're even talking about today. While automation certainly made production more cost effective for companies, many workers in the Rust Belt states like Ohio and Michigan have found themselves without stable employment since then at all. Nothing. The promise of tech-driven prosperity for all remains unfulfilled as these communities deal with long-term unemployment, rising drugs, primarily opioid addiction rates, and social unrest. People are squirming, they're frustrated, there's fear levels. It raises into anger and taking what they need for their family. Chapter 3 here, I want to look at capitalism, robots, and the problem with Musk's vision. Tech moguls like Elon Musk have touted automation as a solution to future work, stating that robots will perform tasks, humans will be free to pursue leisure and creative endeavors. Musk even suggested that we won't need work anymore as robots will take over. And as I mentioned, he's now one of the wealthiest people in all of history. This chapter analyzes Musk's ideas in the context of capitalism and how the financial benefits of automation are actually distributed. So I want to look at a case study here, Musk's wealth versus the worker well-being. Now, I had the benefit of working in connection with Musk not so long ago, and I would never work for him. The way that I describe him, there's a target on the wall, and he's going to bust through that target no matter who he knocks out of the way. His vision is greater than you and I will ever have. He is out to save humanity. He wants bases on other planets, the moon, etc., in order to save humanity at all cost. Most of us don't have that level of value, and we pause when things get rough, or we shift or look to other leaders. He doesn't care what gets in his way. He's going to bust through that target and make sure before he passes that we have humanity in space. So with this case study, Musk wealth versus worker well-being, while Musk advocates for automation, Tesla has had its own issues with worker conditions and its factories, including high injury rates and grueling production targets. As of 2021, Tesla's workforce grew to over 70,000 employees. Yet Musk's personal wealth skyrocketed into the trillions. While many of his workers continue to struggle with relatively low pay and poor working conditions, the irony is clear. The very workers who are enabling Musk's success through their labor are not reaping the rewards of the automation they're building. Now, I'm not saying they're treated unfair. I have no allegations of that. I'm just saying that if you're a CEO and you've levered your wealth, your risk, there's payoffs for that. And it may not seem on the same trajectory as the individual performing the daily tasks, but the responsibility and the intellect are different that put you on a different path. But this also demonstrates the more money you have just shows you who you're more of the same person. If you are stingy with your money when you have none, you're going to be stingy with your money when you have more. If you're kind and caring and giving when you have none, you're going to be kind and caring and giving when you have more. I don't think billionaires and trillionaires got to that level because they randomly give away everything that they have. That would be communism or socialism, not capitalism. So chapter 4, I want to look at the limits of universal basic income as a solution. So if the billionaires and trillionaires won't be paying you cash, in fact, in California right now, they're looking at putting in a one-time, and we know how one-time goes, tax on billionaires, on all of their wealth, whether it's liquid or not. And the response is the billionaires have left California. They're not going to do that. So if they're not going to empty out their bank accounts now in order to give you the change that falls on the floor under a mandate, they're certainly not going to do it when the robots are running all the work and you're sitting home doing nothing, at least not voluntarily. And once again, I'm not opposed to that decision, but I'm just saying that it doesn't work. And those saying that that is the solution means that it comes through tax dollars. You're going to tax, once again, the individuals who own the robots. They'll be paying the taxes to put into the system for the UBI. I don't think that's going to work. So one of the proposed solutions to the problem of widespread job loss is universal basic income, UBI, where the government provides a financial stipend to every citizen, regardless of employment status. While UBI has been tested in some parts of the world, it's far from a universal solution. This chapter here will explore the complexities of UBI and whether it can truly address the underlying issues of job displacement and wealth inequality. So the case study I chose is Finland's UBI experiment. Finland conducted a 2-year experiment from 2017 to 2018 in which 2,000 unemployed citizens received a monthly stipend of about $630. Think what you can do with $630. If you live in California, that's about 1 month's gas. But there's no strings attached to this money that was given out. While the participants reported higher levels of well-being and mental health, the impact on employment rates was really minimal. Critics argue that UBI is a Band-Aid solution that doesn't address the root causes. With rising automation, UBI is often framed as a workaround rather than a real fix, leaving larger structural issues just absolutely unaddressed. Now, Tim Pool talks about UBI quite a bit on Timcast IRL, I think. I don't know the difference between his two channels, but he talks quite a bit about the impact of automation, the fact that we're only getting a very small peek at automation. Where'd he go? Kobe? And so it's really he talks about AI as the dam being held back. As soon as that is fully released, all jobs go away. But here in chapter 5, I want to look at the future of work, reimagining capitalism and labor. The conclusion will look ahead to a new economic framework that could mitigate the harms caused by automation while ensuring fair distribution of wealth and resources. This chapter explores the possibility of moving beyond traditional capitalism and examining emerging ideas such as worker cooperatives, social democracy, and the potential for global collaboration on an economic reform. The case study I chose is a cooperative model in Spain. Spain's, I think it's a Mondragon Corporation, a cooperative founded in the 1950s, has become one of the world's most successful examples of worker-owned businesses. Unlike traditional capitalist companies, the Mondragon workers have a say in decision-making and share in the profits. While not immune to the pressure of automation and market competition, Mondragon offers a vision of how companies can operate with a focus on human dignity and equitable distribution of resources. Could a global network of such cooperatives emerge in response to automation-driven inequality? That would be the question. Just a moment here. Come on. Okay, come here. Okay. There we go. This little guy. Okay. You okay? Yeah, you're good. Okay. So the next point I want to talk to here is kind of wrapping up this conversation. And then I want to get into some of the news and updates. Today's quite a bit. And I did some videos earlier and they're already obsolete. So can capitalism survive automation? Okay. These final moments here, I want to talk about the synthesis, the key arguments that we've made here, exploring whether capitalism as it currently exists can survive in a world where robots take on the majority of tasks. Is UBI a viable solution, or does the world need a fundamentally rethink how we define work, productivity, and economic value? Now, I will let you know, anytime you use AI, AI is programmed to be socialist. It's not capitalism. It's not based in those fundamentals. And unless you specifically ask and guide it, you're going to see it very much leaning in one direction. So, in conclusion, automation, AI, and the fallacy of the work-free future may be compelling, but while tech entrepreneurs like Musk envision a world where robots take over menial tasks, the reality is much more complicated. Displacement and wealth inequality are real issues, and they need addressing. And the human cost of these changes must be central to any conversation about the future of work. Universal basic income is one potential solution, but its effectiveness remains uncertain. The question ultimately becomes, how can we reconcile technological advancement with a fair and just economy for all? I'm really interested in hearing your feedback and thoughts as well. So I want to move on here a little bit to the daily news and talk a little bit. One of the recordings I did this morning was This is Eric Swalwell. I introduced Eric Swalwell, an all-American boy, California boy, who wasn't born in California, but represents us in California. And at the time of the recording, I had stated that, in fact, he was being asked to, well, they'd already kicked him out of running for the governor. Now, after dealing with Newsom, I can't imagine why they would kick anybody out of the run of all the Democrats, based on many polls over the last month or so. Swalwell always came out top of all the Democrats. You can ask Bernie Sanders what happened, but they kicked Eric to the curb. And my question was, if he wasn't good enough to run California because of his corruption, why was he not just representing Californians like myself, but everybody in the United States as a member of Congress? His vote counted. Well, about 23 minutes ago, we got the news that he was announcing he was stepping down from Congress. Now, how crooked do you actually have to be in order to lose your job in Congress? I mean, we've seen everything from them, specifically over the last 5 years. So, you know, sometimes we get stories, but we don't necessarily get the truth. The other story that I want to look at, and I wonder if, no, you know, here it's not going to allow me to show it. But the other story I looked at today was Artemis. Now, don't worry. I asked AI, and AI absolutely told me that we did land on the moon in 1969, and it's just a conspiracy that we did not. Okay, we can lay that to rest. Anyways, what did we do over the last week, 10 days? Apparently, Artemis made a tour around the moon. Well, I drove down to San Diego in order to see Artemis 2 land. However, it landed 60 miles off the coast. Now, I have no doubt that it landed out off the coast because, like everyone else, I got to watch it on the internet, even though I was down there. But did it really go around the moon? Well, if you ask AI, absolutely it did. But AI didn't provide the tinfoil hat. So again, I'll ask you for your comments on this. What do you think about the moon bases? How about buying a timeshare on the moon? If you bought a star, you might be able to go visit soon. Okay, so let me pull up, let's see here. Now, there's so much in the news that we're hitting. Let me see if I can pull this right here. We know that the President of the United States has absolutely gone crazy. And we've seen this on many different levels. Well, what's interesting is for about 2 months, we've seen a lot of videos. In fact, I posted one that was strictly AI generated. There's been many others that I've caught of Trump where it's clear it's not a human, it's AI. And after coming back from San Diego, I sat down last night and pulled up YouTube, and it gave me an option. I use a YouTube that isn't signed in on the Roku. And so, although it has, it knows who I am, it pretends like it doesn't curate the videos for me. So I get some weird stuff, not the same as my algorithms where I sign in, but this is what I use for a baseline. So they gave me about 24 videos that they thought I might like. And I believe 3 of them were actually with human involvement. There were doctors talking to me. There were realtors. There were, you name it, across the spectrum, and they were not real. So we're there already. Let's see. How do we... Oh, you're back too. Okay, come here. Okay, here's the other one. Yes, thank you. And normally, oh, here we go. This is what I wanted to go over to. So there's a trend right now of Jesus's image. Have you all seen this? Let's go ahead and put this on here. Dude, chill. Okay. And it didn't click at all. Oh, it did click. Okay. Okay, so I asked, okay, what are you doing? I asked Google Trends to pull up trending, and it told me there's the #1 trend right now is Google's image. So I went ahead and typed in, Jesus's image. And I wish I could share the screen right now. We're still not getting that fixed, but I'll post another video. Instead, it took me right to ChatGPT. And you know what? It actually sketched a very, very beautiful image based on what we think we have of Jesus. But that's not the Google trend I was looking for. So let me finish loving this little guy. Okay, you need to go down, okay? Okay, so I'm going to put him down. Okay, that was your turn. Come on. Come on, put in. Okay, there you go. Okay, so that is great. I'm going to save this one so I can post it. It gave Jesus on a hillside at sunset is what it gave me. So that's great, but that's not what I was looking for. So let me see why this didn't give me. Okay. So it's Trump Jesus that is coming up. Let's see what it came up. Have you all seen the Trump Jesus as he rips apart even the Pope? Not sure that that's actually what we're going to get today. So let me go back to Google. Here we go. Okay, and here we go. On the New Yorker. Okay. It won't let me see it. It says Trump says AI Jesus post. So did he post that on his Truth Social? I don't know. It's not letting me see it. So let me go back here. And here's CNBC. Truth Social image depicting him as Jesus. It was me as a doctor, he says. President Trump on Monday morning deleted a Truth Social post with an image showing himself appearing as Jesus Christ. Quite interesting now, isn't it? All right, let's see what else we've got here in the bag. This has taken me further from where I wanted to be. So let me go back over here. So we got Cubs versus Phillies, Red Sox versus Finns, Angels versus Yankees. So those are all trending in the last 3 to 4 hours. We'll have to see how those come up. Another Aussie Fudd. Anybody know what Aussie Fudd is? Let's take a look at this. And oh, okay. You probably knew this and you're laughing at me as I'm looking it up. At 2026 WNBA draft predictions and picks, it has come up here. Fudd missed out on most of her sophomores and junior season with a knee injury. Okay, there we go. So we're still at basketball. And what else do we have? Okay, so 7-Eleven closing store. When have you ever seen a 7-Eleven closing stores? And yet around here, we're seeing quite a bit. We've already lost Walgreens and Rite Aid because of California politics, pushed them out completely. But let's see what is trending here. 7-Eleven will close 600 stores this year to prepare for a massive takeover. So let's look at this, because as my understanding goes, 7-Elevens are primarily owned by franchisees. And many of the franchisees, as you may have met, are primarily from one cultural group. And I don't know how that happened, why that is, but apparently they've done a great job acquiring them and running them. So 600 stores is massive. Let's go ahead and see what the situation is. So 7-Eleven is slashing hundreds of stores and supersizing what's left as a convenience giant pivots from quick pit stops to full-on food destination. This is according to MSN. Amid a national trend towards better eats, bigger stores, growing chains like Wawa, Buc-ee's, the long-running brand, confirmed it will shut a whopping 645 locations during 2026 fiscal year, March 1st to February 2028. That's now. As part of a sweeping overhaul that swaps struggling storefronts for larger footprints and a whole lot more. So that is really interesting. And I wonder what the behind the scenes was with the investors, the owners. Okay, so let me see. I'm not really excited. Let me go over here to this site here and see what I can find on the wacky Yahoo News. Okay, removal of U.S. citizen from his home by ICE was possibly kidnapping, is what we're getting out of Minnesota. Have you seen this on the news today? Of course, the governor did a press conference. Officials in Ramsey County, Minnesota, announced a criminal probe into the arrest of, it looks like Chong-Li Tao, a U.S. citizen caught in a viral photo as agents remove him from his home. You know, it's really hard to believe the media, as we're constantly lied to. It's extremely difficult to believe the FBI as we move into another story with that. But it's really hard to believe activists right now, too. So until there's more facts that come out, I'm not going to side that this was kidnapping. Now, okay, so let's look here. This is the Hollywood Report. Over 1,000 Hollywood bold-faced names release open letter expressing unequivocal opposition to the Paramount Warner's deal. Now, these names have come out and they're arguing or holding their stance. But the reality is Hollywood is dead and gone. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, AI can create an entire video in a few seconds. Now you can go back and update or edit it or change the storyline, add on a few minutes. There's so many videos posting right now, whether they're snippets or full, that most people don't even realize that the actors were involved. And in fact, many have been approached in order for companies to use their likeness to put them into AI clones, which is what I believe we're seeing with Trump. And I don't mean on a conspiracy theory, but I do mean that if you're not standing in front of him and you're looking at him on YouTube or some of these other channels, often it's not a person. It is AI created and published on a screen. So let me see what else we have here. Well, 7-Elevens are 99 years old. That's pretty amazing. So let me go back over to this one. Okay, that's not coming up either. I want to look at the FBI. Now, it's really interesting what we're seeing, and specifically related to two cases. And both cases involve the same individuals. Now, no, I'm not talking about who they're, well, we could even go into additional cases that are coming up right now. But what we're seeing is Kash Patel came in after writing the book Gangster Government, or whatever the name of that book was, where he outlined the ways in which he understood the FBI was manipulating and going after political opponents. And yet what we have seen with Kash Patel is crazy eyes, odd behavior related to his girlfriend, and even something as simple as flying around in the FBI jet was one of the things that he ridiculed the former director for doing. And then we had Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino, who I watched on his podcast for years, came in from being a New York Police Department police officer to being Secret Service for Obama. He had an inside view, lots of experience, and he was outspoken. He wasn't afraid to sit and tell you what he was demanding of our government in transparency and the truth, to open up those Epstein, Einstein files, to show us what the truth actually was. Stop hiding them. And yet, what did we see back in December on his birthday? He was given a gift of crap, and he tried to sell it to us. Now, with the recent removal of the Blaze journalist, we're seeing once again this story come up, that they arrested a Black autistic man in order to cover up what the journalist had already discovered was a 94% match of the individual who was involved. And this is all alleged because it hasn't been proven yet. But as they showed images at J6, was also one of the first to shoot into the crowd to rile it up. And yet, in order to cover that up, they went out and found some innocent guy who likes to hide in his own world and hide away from everybody else. This has got to be absolutely torture for Brian through this process. But it's okay, because Dan Bongino, outspoken and wanting his transparency, certainly got what he wanted on his birthday. They arrested somebody, they closed the case. He should be absolutely embarrassed. Now, if we move on to the other one, we can look at Charlie Kirk. Now, Bongino says that Charlie was his friend. He showed up, I believe it was about 5 o'clock on September, was it at the 10th directly? In order to, he and Kash Patel flew in order to be on the scene and help out. Kash made the big announcement of 33 hours. They had an arrest. Now, you might remember that Kash also gave a text message before that said that they had arrested somebody. And then Kash said that they had to let that person go, which is very interesting to know that that person's father allegedly is one of the officers at Fort Huachuca. That name is probably very familiar to you by now. But if it isn't, that has been solidified many times over, specifically thanks to Gary Milton at Paramount Tactical. But it's very clear from the records that have been dumped from the prosecutors to the defense that even if Tyler was involved, I believe in capital murder, it has to be beyond a shadow of a doubt. If there's any doubt, they cannot convict. And yet there is more doubt than actually evidence at this point, because each time something gets put forward from the feds, it's been mixed and mingled. No dates or times, just here, take it. Many of the information has been altered. In fact, Kash Patel stood up himself and said that the picture that they put out of Tyler was enhanced. What do you do in enhancing evidence? It appears that it may have been enhanced in the facial area to make it look more similar to him. That's a problem. It also appears that Tyler may have turned himself in about 3 hours earlier than what we were led to believe. It also appears that Tyler was not meant to survive this. He was looking at the same fate as Butler. And yet somebody stepped in and got himself to turn himself in. And we believe that that's what saved his life, because he was a dead man walking. Now, although he typed confessions on Discord and text messages to his buddy and could fully confessed everything, when the officer said, "I would love to talk to you," after he was read his Miranda rights at about 6:25, 6:26 p.m. on September the 11th, according to the transcript, of which no video has been released, and in fact, the video was told to have not existed because they had changed the times and they couldn't release the actual video, suspiciously. Was he involved? He had enough wits about him to say that his folks, FOLKS, were trying to reach a specific attorney, and he named them by name, and wanted to remain silent. Really? He had just fully confessed via text and Discord and let the whole world know that he had done this and how he had done it and why he had done it. Really? It appears that that was AI generated. So what is real? And are we really in this country still under Kash Patel and the FBI, looking to destroy people's lives and look for patsies rather than looking for the truth? Well, it appears to be. Okay, and also in the news, this came up about 19 minutes ago. It looks like it started 7 hours ago. There's a new info released after the FBI raids a home in the Woodlands. The FBI raided the Texas home of a 20-year-old man accused of throwing a Molotov cocktail. The FBI believes that this may be tied to the OpenAI CEO, attack sources, says CBS. Now, this is on Yahoo News, so I don't go for a lot of validation here, but this was updated 2 minutes ago. This is, of course, April 15th. FBI raids the home that was part of the attack. I don't want to get to videos, so let me make sure that's off. The Texas home of a 20-year-old man accused of throwing a Molotov cocktail at OpenAI CEO Sam Altman's house in San Francisco. 2 U.S. officials confirmed to CBS News on Monday. FBI Houston confirmed earlier in the morning that agents were conducting court-authorized law enforcement activity at the residence. that address is now linked to, and they gave a name, but we don't know, accused of traveling from Houston to San Francisco to specifically target Altman's home. Early Friday, authorities said he threw the incendiary device that set an exterior gate on fire before escaping on foot. No one was hurt. So we'll see what comes of this one. It's also come out that it was Iranian hackers that breached FBI Director Patel's personal emails. Now, that could have been anybody, but it sure was funny, wasn't it? Okay, let me go back to... Okay. Let's see. I don't see a lot of interesting other news today on here. Let me just try, other than, of course, Trump posting himself as Jesus. You know, again, I wish I could be a fly on the wall, because what we're seeing is almost like a movie in itself playing out. It's unreal and comical. Lots of threats, but not a lot of action. Okay, so let me see here what's going on. Urgent U.S.-Iran talks eyed for this week as six-week war nears flashpoint. Here we go. Savannah Hernandez shoved to concrete by Minneapolis protesters in a violent scene. So who is Savannah Hernandez? Do you know who it is? I'll go back to that in a minute. Swalwell's best friend in Congress turns on him amid bombshell allegations. I don't know who his best friend is in Congress, but isn't it kind of odd that Swalwell was removed from the California governor's list and actually pushed out of Congress? Again, I can't imagine what he did. I believe it's probably more along the lines of what he would not do any longer that got him kicked out. But again, we'll never know. So, okay, TPUSA, turning point. Reporter Savannah Hernandez assaulted during Minneapolis riot. Frontlines, TPUSA reporter was attacked while covering the ICE protests in Minneapolis on Saturday. At the Whipple building, protesters took the place over, and they swarmed her, blowing horns in her face, yelling obscenities, and waving adult products at her. That's kind of like what we saw with the basketball, if you saw that. Now, we've seen, who's been covering that? What is the gentleman's name who every night covered what was going on in Oregon outside the ICE building and made a huge difference there, as the police are actually responding now? And T Supply, I think his name is. Let me see if I can find him on YouTube here. T-SPLY on YouTube. And he really follows ICE around, not on the ground. He works from his home office, but he picks up feeds and then he'll show them. It was really interesting. He's one of them that streamed the live stream in the Los Angeles ICE riots, where the Waymo cars got lit on fire. Now, once again, if we talk about AI and machine learning, there's no excuse that those Waymo cars were even in that area. They have an ability to gate them so that they don't go in different areas. And to send them down to the riot, one, it showed that they were supporting of the activist movement, of which that company often does. And two, they knew that they would get publicity. So that was not an altruistic burning of those. It was their Jaguar models that burnt up in flames. So T Supply, he's the one who follows the ICE agents and gives you the truth with that. What else do we have here? I've moved over to okay, so here we've got popular Mexican food franchise under fire from the left over its CEO taco shop back Trump. And so now everything is cancel culture. Okay, here we've got streets overtaken, where rowdy teenagers, which we're seeing in many, many cities, but we're not seeing them in the main cities. We're seeing in known rough areas. In this case, rowdy teenagers swarm the DC Navy Yard in waterfront takeover despite police juvenile curfew zone. Let's see here. You got your commercial going in the background and another commercial on this side. So that's Washington, D.C. Navy Yard. And this was posted, what time is it now? About a little less than 90 minutes ago. See what else we have in the news here. Also, we're going to take one from each side. Oh, okay. Come on. Are you on your tippy toes? Come on. Oh, Rep. Gonzalez, who is a Republican, I believe, from Texas, is also exiting Congress. Again, a problem with not zipping up his pants, just as Swalwell. But this is Congress. This is what's expected of those members. So it is extremely shocking to me that at this point, they're cleaning house for that issue. I think, again, it has to do with blackmail and individuals not playing the game anymore. I don't know anything about Rep. Gonzalez, but out here in California, Swalwell is not a favorite. We can just politely leave it at that. Now, also, Representative Ro Khanna was grilled on 4,600 criminal migrants released in his own state. I don't know about you, but I like to watch the congressional hearings. So let's look at this. Ro Khanna confronted by a voter on California immigration policies in a Jubilee appearance. Marion cited roughly 4,600 illegal immigrants with criminal records allegedly re-released. They were in jail in California and put back on the streets. Once again, let me grab this. So why are we doing this? Why do they have more rights than us? There's many individuals who state that everybody needs to be treated equal and fair. Don't I have a right to safety? So Ro Khanna faced off, he's a Democrat here in California, faced off with a speaker identified as Marion during the Jubilee debate on Sunday, where the two talked about immigration policy, public safety, and accountability for elites tied to the Jeffrey scandal. This person framed her concerns around personal safety and government priorities, arguing that Democratic policies pose a great threat to everyday Americans. Yes, I am facing it myself. My frustration is, as a regular everyday American citizen, I feel that I am more likely to be harmed by Democratic policies such as open borders, this person said. The exchange reflected a border debate over immigration enforcement, crime, and policy priorities, with Khanna advocating reform alongside border security as critics pointed to gaps in California's approach. Now, the statement here says, in your state, something like 4,600 or so illegal immigrants had criminal records, were re-released from jail. So when we're talking about harming Americans, we're talking about children potentially being harmed, and we're looking into child trafficking. We have to acknowledge that illegal immigration is the biggest funnel for child trafficking. You know, it's interesting. It was finally brought out this week, a story on Catholic Charities. Now, do you remember during COVID, Alex Jones, whether you like him or not, I don't know why there's such a division there. He went down to the border multiple times and saw individuals forcing many, many more kids than were seats in the cars into vehicles. The kids said they didn't know the people. And the people who didn't speak English would say that they were just transporting the kids for Catholic Charities. As that stream went on, okay, let me see if I can find this. It was alleged, and only alleged, I don't know that there's been any convictions, but the government was giving funds and donations and grants to Catholic Charities and other partners in order to traffic people over the border and set them up in the United States. It looks like the YouTube, now they're saying it's possibly imposters that did it rather than Catholic Charities. But this is one that we're going to see in the news as more comes out about Catholic Charities and the mass movement of illegal immigrants, not only across the border, but specifically child trafficking. There was another, it's not what I wanted to go to. Let me see if I can find this here. And I'm not quite seeing what I'm looking for right here to share with you. But yeah, I don't see that here. So we'll come back to that. But watching in front of Congress, quite a few questions are being asked, and the information doesn't really get to us. So if you ever get a chance to watch any of the congressional hearings or fly out to DC, you can get free tickets. It's really just a pass to go on either the Senate side or the Congress side and just sit and listen to them. Quite honestly, many of the statements and arguments are stupid and a waste of time. However, you get to see the process. And you can also sit and really hear the arguments on either side, as one side typically tries to run down the clock and bring up comments and arguments that have absolutely nothing to do with the issue at hand. And the other side will bring up facts that are helpful to know. Okay, so there is one good story here, and it's a DoorDash driver who brought McDonald's to Trump, says she pocketed an extra $4,000. You know, this is actually kind of interesting. We know over the years that Trump has talked about McDonald's and how much he enjoys that food. But this story, go ahead and Google it. You can look it up. It was actually, it looks like it was published 2 minutes in the future. That time is off a little. Recently published, and this might have been a pickup. I'm looking at Fox News right now, but let's see here, and two more. So the DoorDash driver hails key Trump policy after delivering McDonald's to the White House. He says, "I'm going to enjoy it." That's kind of funny. Her name was Sharon Simmons. Shout out to her. I don't know how she got through security that fast. Clearly, this was a public stunt. But special delivery, that's what an honor. She even has a t-shirt that says DoorDash Grandma. So that's, an awesome story. I do want to talk though a little about Mamdani and Amazon. So let me go ahead and pull that up. As I mentioned in my opening, I was talking about Amazon and machines replacing humans. However, let me look at this right here. This is on MSN. And pick this up here. Amazon quits Mamdani's New York City as Manhattan sheds hundreds of jobs. Amazon's decision to exit Mamdani's New York City has led to a significant upheaval. The hundreds of employees in Manhattan facing layoffs. This move, reported in November 2025, marks a pivotal shift in Amazon operating strategy. The departure underscores the challenge of Amazon facing and maintaining its urban expansion efforts, particularly in competitive and high-cost markets like New York City. Now, you could just imagine in New York City, it is so key to be able to have fast and efficient delivery. You just can't move around the city that much. Many don't own a car, and to have the goods delivered is paramount. And yet, Mamdani continues to squeeze this. In fact, apparently, what's going on let's see here. NVIDIA and Amazon temporarily closed Dubai offices. Google employees stranded amid the US-Iran war. Okay, let me get back to what I pulled up here was not what I wanted to see. Okay, so Mamdani has decided that Amazon can't have third-party deliverers anymore. He hasn't passed it yet, but it looks like we're inching in that direction. And so I'm trying to find that article because that's huge. Apparently, that affects about 5,000 of the third-party deliverers, which is that last mile for Amazon delivery. Now, this is on top of the nearly 700 New York City employees for Amazon that lost their job back in November. And let me see, here we go. It has to do with the delivery protection law. Mamdani administration backs delivery protection law opposed by Amazon-backed coalition. So this print, let me see if there's a better one because the article here by Sophia is not, let's see. Coming to this point, let's see if this will give me. Okay, maybe the New York Post will get that. But let me give you a little bit of background on this. Do you remember during COVID? So we're talking right in 2020. Now, for March 13th of 2020 is when we first realized that, wait a minute, something is odd. I dropped off my child at school, asked people a couple of questions, went right back and grabbed my child, got in the car and went home. By Monday, the world had shut down for the 2 to 3 weeks to slow the curve. And yet Amazon somehow had ordered thousands of those brand new vans in order to deliver packages all through COVID. They had the insights, however they got it, in order to have the ability to take over deliveries during COVID. Now, in order to do this, you might remember this delivery network that they created was not Amazon. And it was, I'll come up with the name in a few minutes. It's 3 words. But what they did is they posted articles to hire individuals that would then buy the vans that they already put on order. So that would be on an individual or a business that the individual set up. And then that individual would hire all the laborers, and then they would do the last mile delivery. But what's interesting with that contract is, what are the most expensive parts of running a business, specifically in California where I'm at, or in New York City? The vehicle and the labor. So with gas at all times high, insurance off the hook, and any kind of damage to a vehicle taking you out of the game, that whole pivot went off of Amazon's book and went into these third parties who started their own small business. Labor, dealing with labor strikes, labor commitments, hiring individuals, walk-offs, all that ridiculousness, plus all the high fees and changes based on policy, again, was not shouldered by Amazon. It was shouldered by the third-party companies. Now, there was one gentleman in New York City in particular who is testing one of the electric bike delivery vehicles. It's got let's see, like half as wide as a car. It's got a big box on the back where you can put a whole bunch of packages to deliver, and then they pedal, but it's electric assist. So it's it looks to me like a brilliant idea and a brilliant solution, especially in cities like New York City, where the roads are basically flat. They can operate in the back bike lane. They're not causing congestion by parking in the middle of the road because they couldn't find a parking space. It makes sense moving in and out. As they hop out, they can lock up and secure the other packages, get back on and go to their next point. It's brilliant. So one individual was saying that he started out testing, and now he himself has 150 bike riders under his company that are now delivering via this system. However, Mamdani, in all of his brilliance, on I believe it was April 8th. This is April 8th is when the New York Post article came out. New York City bill would force Amazon to hire thousands of local delivery workers. It's estimated that there's about 5,000 of these third-party workers, and Mamdani doesn't think it's right that they should go through a third party. So if they cut this off, the reality is Amazon's not going to hire all of those employees. You're going to see a large percentage who lose their job. And at this point, with New York and the situation it's in, they're either going to go on the dole and get socialist money, EBT cards, welfare, whatever that might look like, or they're going to be forced out of the city altogether. But the bottom line is, the customer bills are going to soar. Anytime Amazon is forced to make a change, they use that to pass on the money to people like you and I. So Amazon is squaring off against New York City legislators over a bill that could force the e-commerce giant to hire thousands of delivery workers across the 5 boroughs. A rule that could send customer bills soaring by several $100s per year. That's what the New York Post is reporting. The controversial Delivery Protection Act. Anytime a government talks about protection, specifically labor protection, companies don't deal with it anymore. They replace, and they use that to go to machine learning and artificial intelligence and robots. And this just pushes them even further faster. They introduced earlier this year by, of course, Democratic Queens Councilwoman Tiffany Caban, C-A-B-A-N, and slated for its first public hearing in City Hall on Thursday. They could upend Amazon's delivery model, which relies on more than 40 subcontractors who employ about 5,000 workers to drive Amazon's branded vans and e-bikes across the city. This bill lights a ton of dynamite under the delivery industry, said an industry source who works with Amazon and its logistics. If the bill becomes law, Amazon would likely relocate its 10 city-based distribution centers just outside the border, New Jersey, Long Island, and Westchester County, according to an economic impact analysis of the proposed legislation. Do people not think this through? Amazon is a predictive company. They run all the data and the analytics. They know what the opportunity costs are going to be. They know what the costs are going to be to stay and play ball. And as I've stated before, they're not shy about taking their fall and going home. They will cut their losses and close those 10 distribution centers before they have to hire 5,000 new employees. As we talked about the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, Jeff's not taking that on. That's not something that he has shown any interest in believing in. But Mamdani, on the other hand, who is a phenomenal businessman and really understands economics, socialism, doesn't seem to care. All these individuals that he says that they're protecting are going to lose their jobs. Hundreds of supporters and opponents of the legislation are gearing up for rallies. The mayor's office did not respond to requests for comment, and spokesperson for Menon, a Manhattan Democrat, said she was waiting for the bill to go through the legislative process to receive input and engagement from stakeholders. If it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea. It doesn't take the train running off the tracks to realize the level of stupidity. You know, at some point, we've got to be able to remove these individuals who impact our lives, whether they're elected or unelected, or SES or senior executive staff who just hold on as a career destroying other people's life. Somebody has to step up and say enough is enough. Okay. There's a question here on Fox News. Could Somaliland base emerge as U.S. foothold against Iran? What is Somaliland? Analyst says the new base has huge strategic potential for sea and air operations. I'm not sure we quite get what we're doing here. This I'm now on Fox News. Johannesburg, a strategically important base and port, have been offered to the U.S. as a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz begins, and Iran-backed threats target the key Red Sea choke point of the strait. Military officials, including the commander of U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, visited the facilities being offered in Somaliland. Is a pro-U.S. outpost, having broken away from the war-torn Somalia in 1991. Wonder if Omar has any part of assisting us with that negotiation. Pakistani general says Iran diplomacy is still alive despite the U.S. blockade. And Iran secures UN role with backing from the UK, France, Canada, and Australia, as the U.S. stands alone. So everybody's picking a side, and it's not with Israel, and it's not with the United States. And it looks like, let me read that one more time. I was looking to see where Ukraine fell on that one, as they've gotten all our tax money for so long. And okay, I wanted to talk about space as well. I did a release on that, and I don't remember if it came out this morning or if that's the Artemis is coming out tomorrow. So where are we at with space? If we look at the conversations around space, there's quite a bit that we know and much, much more that we don't know. In fact, I believe we don't even know the right questions to ask. So let me see here. 6 hours ago on space.com, there was an article that came out. NASA science faces very serious threat from new White House budget. This is the least transparent NASA budget request that they've seen, and it's literally looked through every single one since the 1960s. This is Samantha Mathewson, from space.com. Now, there's some interesting points here. As the fiscal budget reduces down, isn't NASA the organization that left 2 of our astronauts in space under the Biden administration, refused to go get them, until under the Trump administration, Elon sent a rescue mission? I'm not sure how much NASA has helped versus just coveted government contracts for all these decades. And there's been a lot of explanation or exploration into the NASA motivation in order to go along with the government conspiracy, if we want to stick with that, of what happened in 1969. But Trump is proposing a 47% cut to NASA in the middle of these launches out into space. What are you doing? Okay. But remember, right now we're in the middle of alien disclosure. We're in a time where we're definitely going in this direction. We're being told that there's definitely something out there. We're pretty much being told that there's really not anything on other planets so much as other dimensions. I think that's a lot of the change from the unidentified flying object to the unidentified phenomenon, that manipulation of the word, which I think we're back to that. But if you circle back to December of 2017, you're going to remember all the disclosure that we got at that time. That's really when we were talking about the little tic-tac. That's when Trump went ahead and announced the Space Force. And a lot of the imagery, and I think that's about when ATIP moved forward with their disclosures. I think his name was Elizondo or Elizondo. Now, of course, we've got individuals like George Knapp, Bell, all these key figures that have been reporting on this for so long. What is the lady's name as well? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name. And David Wilcock. There's that whole group that has been talking in this direction for decades and decades. The woman who wrote It's a Strange Harvest, I think it was, and talked about the cow mutilations. We've been lied to more than we've been told the truth by our government. And I don't understand why the lies and the manipulation. It really has nothing to do about protecting us or religion, because they certainly don't care about that. But could you imagine a world that we stepped into where, in fact, we knew the truth? We knew that where we came from and where we were going? I think this is the greatest lie, because if we knew where we came from, if we really knew human history, our DNA and our maker, the choice for eternity wouldn't just be a game or something that somebody would taunt. They would absolutely know how to play the game on Earth and to make sure they went through the narrow entry at the end. I don't know, but we're told over the next few months this elevation is coming out, so everybody will know the truth. Again, I'm interested to hear your comments. Where do you think we stand in this universe? Do you think we already know the truth? Okay, so let me see here. I want to look at Artemis as well. Okay, oops, I wanted to look at the timeline, actually. Are you done? Okay, so looking ahead at NASA's Artemis 3, 4, 5, it's on News Nation, the moon mission. With NASA's Artemis 2 mission complete, the space agency is now moving full speed ahead and towards its next goal, returning Americans to the moon. To people all around the world, the article continues, and a dream about what is actually possible. The long wait is over, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman said as he introduced Artemis 2 Commander Reid Wiseman, pilot, and the flight staff on Saturday's homecoming celebration. NASA plans to resume the crewed missions in 2027 with Artemis 3. So we'll look at that in 2027. The mission will involve testing one or both commercial lunar landers developed by SpaceX and Blue Origin. Now, remember the comedy we had with Blue Origin? Blue Origin made the suborbital flight and made a few stars astronauts, when really all they did was take pictures, really selfies. But that was comedy at its best. The mission will involve testing one or more both commercial landers, and again, SpaceX and Blue Origin are involved, each beginning in low Earth orbit. The Artemis 3 will be the crew will launch into low orbit. They'll test rendezvous and docking capabilities between Orion, and landers could be from both SpaceX and, of course, Blue Origin. So contracts are going out there. Okay, get down. So we've got a whole timeline coming up over the next 5 years, I guess it is, in order to build that base on the moon, to extract anything we can and get people to be on a base on the moon. Now, I don't know. I really am grateful for Earth, the beauty that we have here, the blue skies, the wonderful oceans, the trees and the forests. Not quite seeing the beauty on the moon. But, you know, when I was a lot younger, that's the one thing I wanted to do, was be an astronaut. So we've got Artemis 1 that went in 2022, Artemis 2, which went in 2024, and Artemis 3 in 2025 is what this chart is showing, which I don't think that's quite true. Well, here's the Artemis program timeline. Let me make it this here. I wish I could show you this, but it says 2012, the plans were unveiled for the Artemis program timeline. 2017, the program was initiated. 2022, the launch was delayed because of mechanical. In 2022, the launch was delayed again because of mechanical. In 2022, the launch was delayed because of a hurricane. In 2022, the launch delayed because of a tropical storm. Don't they have a weather app? Finally, in 2022 November, Artemis 1 launched as scheduled. I don't know how they can say as scheduled. And then, of course, we have 2024 Artemis 2 launch, 2025 Artemis 3 launch is what NASA has produced on the timeline. On its record flyby, the crew reached a maximum distance of 252,000 miles or 406,000 kilometers from Earth, surpassing the distance record set by Apollo 13 before looping back behind the moon. So they got to see the dark side of the moon, is what we're told. NASA releases stunning new images captured by Artemis 2 moon mission, including Urset and solar eclipse from space. Now, we've been told this is the Artemis 2, but we're in 2026, so I don't understand how these images are saying Artemis 3 was in 2020. Yeah, this is NASA, so I don't know how they're explaining that. But anyways, the images are absolutely spectacular. NASA has released the first images by the Artemis 2 crew during their historic trip to the far side of the moon. The 4 astronauts were taking the pictures and making them available. Among the stunning, instead of a sunset, they showed an Earth set. So if in fact this is something of interest to you, there's a beautiful image of Earthset captured through the Orion spacecraft window at 6:41 p.m. on April 6 during the Artemis II cruise flyby of the moon, where they show the moon with the Earth in the background. It is absolutely beautiful, if it's true. And then a complete solar eclipse, eclipsing the sun. Now, what I want to do, and then they have their goofy glasses on so they can look at the sun. What I wanted to specifically see was, so I wanted to see the dark side of the moon. And if you've seen those pictures already, please go ahead and let me know where they've been posted, because we're seeing pictures, but nothing is decided or declared as the back side of the moon. Let's see if I can see here on Ars Technica. And yeah, I'm not seeing what we'd actually be looking for here. But, you know, maybe not you and I, but it sure looks like the opportunity for our children is growing very near as we get closer and closer to being free from Earth's gravity. Okay, so what else do we have here this evenings? Okay, so Mother Jones, why I put this in, I don't know, says, goodbye, Viktor Orban. Isn't he the one that is president in Turkey? Isn't he the one? And yet I clicked on it and it went to a totally different site. So I don't know how they work. There's no article here. Okay, it's not coming up. I don't know what's up with their site, and I haven't been here in probably 20 years. So lots of complaints of ICE, complaints of Trump, complaints of, yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, and then let's just see what is trending here on what do we have here? YouTube. So we've got a trending on YouTube, of course, YouTube trends that you need to know, how to find trending topics on YouTube, and the next 5 big YouTube trends. Okay, so it didn't take me to a trend search like I was expecting. So let me see if I can get up here. Okay, so see if we can click on this without sound. And I get. Okay, we got that going here. Let's click back and see what else is going on here. So Nomad Brad is talking about 832 people stopped paying rent, and now they live free in RVs in the Arizona desert. So do you remember during COVID, we had all of those RVs, at least here in Santa Clara County. They could live anywhere they wanted without restriction. In fact, the city set up entire locations and brought them bathrooms and food and EBT cards. And and everything. In fact, they would buy the RVs for them and then give them to them, knowing that they were old and they didn't run, but they weren't going to go anywhere. Well, apparently, they've now ended up down in Arizona. 832 people are now living in the Arizona desert. Now, it's hot. There just seems to be a lot of issues with that. And I don't know what infrastructure they have around that. But okay, let's see here. So superintelligence is coming, according to Sam Altman's OpenAI's blueprint for the future economy. This goes into how I opened this up with AI taking over jobs, but not replacing customers. If you don't have a job, you don't have money. And then, of course, Cash Jordan out of New York City talks about New York City banning free delivery. Amazon closes 7 warehouses permanently is what's being proposed there. Trump has said that the U.S. will stop all Iranian ships. That was posted 1 hour ago. And so buckle down at the pump, which I actually don't understand. Since we are producing via pump, or drill, why is our economy being affected so drastically? I call it price gouging, but of course, Gavin Newsom said that that's not the case. Okay. And I think that's about all that we've got going on right here. I think this is about where we're at with the news. And see if I can get back to one over here. I think that's about wrapping it up for today. We've gone over quite a bit of information, and I really thank you for sticking with me as we've explored these subjects this evening. If you've got any other input, I'd love to read the chat and give feedback as we really talk about AI and machine learning and how it's going to really affect our day-to-day lives. And no, the pot at the end of the rainbow, or the lie that Elon Musk is going to give you cash once your job is gone, is just not going to happen. So what we need to do is really understand what we can about AI ourselves, build our own businesses, leverage what we can in order to figure out our own pathway. Anything that can be done with labor or manual is going to survive. Anything done with coding, computers, and I said even the Denny's waiter was replaced already by robotics. This is really going to be an interesting time that we step into. And the more that we can be prepared, well, the easier it's going to be to get through this time. But it isn't a time to be panicking. It's a time to be aware. Study, start your own business, and continue to grow. And you too will be able to get to the other side only if you create your own pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. All right. Well, this little guy and I are going to head off to dinner. I wish you a wonderful evening, and we'll check back tomorrow. Have a good evening. Okay, what are you doing? Okay, here he goes. Here's the little guy. Here he is. Okay. All right. All right. Good night, everybody. What are you doing?